Alright guys, I have been playing guitar for about 20 years at this point, and I'm sure the first thing that came to mind was, wow, I thought he would be a lot better. And you know what? That's the first thing that comes to my mind too. I thought I'd be a lot better by this point too. But that's not the topic today. I want to talk about vintage guitars and how I'm really just over them, and I don't plan on ever buying any more vintage guitars. So I've been lucky enough to get a couple of them, and I want to explain why I'm probably not getting any more, and I actually think it's vintage guitars' fault why that's even happening. So come on, let's talk about it. So I'd be really curious to know how you guys feel about this as well. I know the vintage guitar community and the topics in general, you know, let's just keep it nice. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be like a hostile situation. Like I said, I've been lucky enough to own a couple of guitars. Now, this is an absolute dream guitar for me. I've made multiple videos about it. This is a 63 Strat, but it is a player grade Strat. Now, it has a repainted, refinished, you know, body on it, repro pickguard, changed pots, changed switch. I had it refretted because the frets were like down to nothing. So lots have been changed about it to make it affordable to where, you know, normal people can even get them. What's crazy, and this is the first reason why I won't buy any more vintage guitars, is I got this in I think 2018. These have tripled in price since then, and I'm like, I would never pay that much for a guitar, ever. Like, it's crazy how expensive these are, and you know, I can't afford them. I can't afford to buy them, as cool as they are, because I think one of the greatest pros to vintage guitars is they feel extremely individual. You know, each one feels very different from the next, and you get stories with them. I love the idea of guitars having stories. I got to hear the entire history of this guitar, can't talk, from Jim, who owned this before me. I have pictures of it, documenting it. That's what makes these guitars so special. Now, the flip side of that is that I want the guitar to be played. I don't want to look at the thing. You know, the stories are great. I love the stories. What does it sound like? I want to play it. You know, that's the only thing I really care about at the end of the day. How does it sound? How does it play? And no vintage guitar that I've ever played, and I've played a bunch, not nearly as many as, you know, other guys, but all vintage guitars that I've played have needed a ton of work to even play moderately well. And I would say the best playing vintage guitars still don't, you know, really play as good as most modern guitars. So that's one of the things that we'll get into here in a minute. So what I want to do is I'm going to play my old Strat up against a couple of Strat variants I have. Just kind of compare them. See if you think that they sound different enough to justify this guitar. I want to talk about some other cons that I have and gripes I have with vintage guitars. And then I'll do the same with my Les Paul. But I have the Strat and my Les Paul, which is a 79. And both of those I bought, you know, whenever things were down. So I'm, you know, very lucky to own them, but I'm not getting any more. I do have the Firebird, that's a 63, but I'm trying to sell that one, actually. So I've gotten rid of almost all the vintage stuff I had and replaced it with more modern things. So let's get into all that. For tones, I'm using the Dr. Z Z-Rec, and just, you know, let's have some fun. Let's just play some guitar. Okay, so let's talk about these for a second. So the Strat sounds great. I love the way it sounds. I love the way all three of these guitars sound. The playability of this one in particular, the Charvel, this is the DK24 that I recently got, and it is phenomenal. Has so many modern things that I like on it opposed to the Strat. The heel joint here, much more convenient. It literally feels better to play. When I play my Strat, you can see my hand hits right here, okay? It's hitting right there. On the DK, it's not that way at all. My hand can fit up here comfortably, which, you know, I do play up here pretty often, so that's a big deal for me. Another thing is, oh, I want to adjust the neck. Oh, I just adjust it right here real quick in a matter of seconds. That's not going to happen with this thing. You have to take the whole neck off. I know that's a common vintage gripe, and it is horrible. Now, I haven't needed to adjust this neck very much, even with the changing weather here in Nashville, but huge deterrent. You know, there are so many modern things I like. I like the tremolo system so much better on the Charvel. That's just any tremolo system. So on the Strat, you can really only push down unless you get it to where you raise your bridge up a little bit. Then you can kind of pull up. I never like the way that feels. It feels different than this one is like recessed. So I can pull up on it a little bit if I want to and kind of vibrato the notes. Okay? I just think this sounds so good. In every area, I think it's comparable sound-wise to the Strat, and it's just so much easier to play. You know, so sometimes you want the fight, sometimes you don't. In general these days, I don't want the guitar to fight me. I just want it to play really well, and I want it to play in tune. That is the biggest thing I want. So the flatter fretboard, you know, the modernized controls on some stuff, the tremolo system. I mean, why would I go down the rabbit hole of buying something else that's vintage and then, like, what, do you mod it? You can't mod. That's another thing. Like, it would be sacrilege to mod it. Like, you're not gonna route out a, you know, vintage Strat or something like that. The guitar is what it is, and you have to be content with that. So this, I mean, I don't want to mod it because I think it's great the way that it is. But you know, if I wanted to change pickups, or I wanted to put a different tremolo system in here, or if I want different knobs, something like that, you don't think twice about that stuff because it's just a guitar that you bought to be played. You know, there is no vintage attachment to this right now, and I think that's a huge pro. So when it comes to the Les Pauls, they're really not that different. You know, sound-wise, very different. The T-tops and the KM, you know, quite a bit hotter than what these antiquities are. But the build construction, there's not really any advantages to the other one other than those frets are really low. And if I change those to anything else than the original frets, the value of it just tanks. It goes way down. And you know, this guitar is nowhere near as expensive as that one. And I think it plays better. Again, sound better, well, that's up to the player. But it sounds just as good as anything else, in my opinion. So I think that I don't have that vintage attachment to the stuff where I'm like, it's vintage, it sounds better. You know, I just think it sounds like a different guitar. Like, they all just sound like guitars, like different flavors of vanilla or something, or different flavors of strawberry or something like that. It's like, oh, that one has a really strong flavor, that one is a little bit more chill, but I like it for what it is. I just enjoy them all you know, I don't think I'll ever be a diehard anything other than just a diehard guitarist. Like, if it plays good, sounds good, it is good. I don't care what it is. So while these don't have as much variation as the Strats did, I remember Gibson tried to do, they made like a more modernized one with a cutout heel and all that stuff, and people really gave him a hard time for it. I was like, ugh, do you not want the guitar to play better? Like, is it a crime to have a guitar that just plays really, really well? So, I don't know. That side of stuff, I just don't get. You know, the desire to own vintage stuff is just no longer there for me because I've found other guitars that I just enjoy more. So with all that being said, I'd be curious to know what you guys think about it. Are you with me, or are you just a diehard vintage person? You know, I think there's no wrong or right answer, but I do think that as we grow as musicians, you really continue to fine-tune what it is that you like. And one of the things I love about playing all these different guitars is I'm taking little elements from each one, and it's like you log it away and you're like, oh, I like the neck on that one, I like the radius on that one, I like the weight on that one, I like the pickups, you know, and you kind of create your perfect guitar. And while vintage guitars have, you know, stuff going for them, they're just not my vision of a perfect guitar anymore, and it's just not my thing. So I prefer modernized guitars way more overall, and like I said, I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Other than that, hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Later, homies. Woo!